I'm your host, Riri. Welcome to Reimagining Life from Pain to Purpose, where you'll find a community focused on resilience and perseverance, sharing untold stories of hope and rebuilding while dealing with major life interruption. This podcast is made by and for people in the process of reimagining their lives. We're here to raise the voices of those who often suffer in silence, living with chronic pain and/or disability. This space is for you. We encourage you to get involved. So stick around and let's jump right into the next episode. Welcome to episode 14. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Rachel Posner, a yoga therapist and mindfulness teacher, helping people reduce stress, build resilience, and thrive. Her work is informed by the intersection of mindfulness, neuroscience, and psychology, and her teachings integrate best practices for the mind, body, and brain. Rachel works with people in a number of different ways, including virtual meditation and yoga classes, one-on-one, and retreats. Rachel's unique holistic approach helps her develop deeper connections with others, looking at the whole mind-body picture, which helps inform her work. Let's talk to Rachel and learn about her experience working with people with chronic illness and disability. So welcome, Rachel. We are so excited to have you on the podcast today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a sort of 30-second overview of your background.
Sure. I'm thrilled to be here. And my background is that I am a yoga therapist, a yoga instructor. I have a master's in counseling. I've done some training with a nature-based organization. It's a circuitous background, but I've been kind of in this wellness field for the last 20 years or so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You have covered a lot of ground.
I have.
Okay. And can you explain to us sort of, maybe in layman's terms, what is a yoga therapist, and what does that actually mean in real life?
Yeah. In real life, a yoga therapist is somebody that is looking at kind of the whole picture, mind, body picture, and helping people to find wellness, to find more comfort mentally, physically, emotionally. And we use yoga practices, yoga philosophy, we use meditation, mindfulness, relaxation techniques. There are lots of tools in the toolbox. But essentially, it's really helping someone with the big picture versus just zeroing in on a physical issue or a mental issue or an emotional issue, kind of take a larger perspective.
Okay, great. That sounds pretty good for people like me. Stuff going on.
It's pretty good for all humans.
True. You're very true. So can you tell me, how does your work help people who are dealing specifically with chronic pain and maybe disability?
I think because it's such a big picture. Again, we're not zeroing in on any one thing. So if you're struggling with chronic pain or disability, there are people that will help you with the physical manifestations of that. There are other people that will help you with the mental or the emotional manifestations of that. What I love about yoga therapy is that it's really a big picture practice because there isn't a one-size solution for anything. So when you're dealing with pain, there are huge impacts on your physical body, but there are also significant impacts on your stress level, on your nervous system, on your mental and emotional health. So when I'm working with someone who struggles with chronic pain or disability, we're kind of looking at all the pathways to wellness.
That's so true. And I was reading a little bit about you on your webpage, and I understand that you, and as you've been saying, you merge psychology, neuroscience, mindfulness, all of that in together for your clients. What do you see as, I mean, I know you've said that it's a more holistic picture. Are there any specific things that you think make it especially helpful, the putting together of all these different pieces?
Well, specifically for people with chronic pain or disability. I think one reason it's so helpful is because when we're dealing with pain, we can really get into kind of mental loops around the suffering. And there is the suffering that's caused by the pain, but then there is the suffering that is caused by the way we are sitting with the pain, the way we are thinking about the pain, the way we are considering the pain. There's loops that are happening, and those loops basically become tracks in your brain. So our brains are wired by every thought, every emotion, every sensation we have. And so we can wind up with kind of a groove in the brain that says when A happens, then B happens. And so sometimes they get called first darts or second arrows. There's the initial discomfort, but then there's all the things that happen as a result of that discomfort. So part of what we want to do is rewire some of those loops so that feeling discomfort in my hip doesn't lead me down a long road of emotional suffering as well. So that's one piece. That's like a neurological piece that I work with. But I think another piece is that sometimes when we're uncomfortable, we get so wrapped in that particular sensation that we don't have the ability to observe our full body experience. And oftentimes, our full body experience is much more pleasant than that one particular pain point or those few particular pain points. So, there's a way of working with mindfulness and with meditation that can help us expand our perspective so we can see the big picture, which often is less uncomfortable than the small picture.
That's really interesting. I like the way you describe it. Yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see that at work.
There's the hypothetical, but it's much more interesting to be in the experiential piece of it.
Right. Can you tell me in your work about like what percentage of your clients do you think are people dealing with chronic pain or disability?
It's interesting because I would say maybe 10%, but it's probably a lot bigger, right? Because people present with all different kinds of issues, pain points, things that they're working on. And I think a lot of people are carrying around a lot of pain, but they don't identify that as their principal pain point or their principal issue. So I think I probably work with a lot more than 10%, but they're coming for something else. And what I imagine is that I'm helping them with the pain as well. It's just not the primary piece of the conversation that we're having.
Yeah. And how do you work with clients?
Again, it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
So if you looked at my website, you know, I guide retreats. I offer yoga and meditation membership. I sometimes offer online classes around stress management, nervous system regulation. I work with people one-on-one. So how I work with clients in a really focused way is my one-on-one work, but one-on-one doesn't work for everybody. So I have lots of kind of different modalities that I dip my toes into.
That's great. Really, especially for those of us who are on tight budget incomes and
Mm-hmm.
would love to see people one-on-one, but it might just not be possible. So that is really great. And I appreciate that you do that.
Yeah.
So what have you learned while working with people with chronic pain or disability over the years? Does it change your style or how you've been doing things?
You know, the thing that I think about a lot with people with chronic pain or disability is just how many layers they're having to work through. So there's the discomfort, and then sometimes along with that, there's the loss or the grief. And then there's the reestablishing who they are in this moment while living with the disability or the discomfort. I'm just aware of how many layers they're having to sort through. And so it's not so much that I approach things differently, it's just that that builds so much compassion in me.
Yeah. Wow. So what are the biggest challenges or hurdles that you see maybe over and over with chronic pain patients and people with disability?
I think the biggest one is that if you have chronic pain, oftentimes your goal is to get rid of that pain. And that is not always accomplishable. So I think a challenge and an opportunity when you're dealing with chronic pain is to take it from a much bigger picture. This is where I think mindfulness is really, really helpful with chronic pain, because mindfulness is all about sort of expanding the big picture. In moments, being able to drop into the center of your body, and in other moments, being able to take more of an observational experience of it. Like when we're right in the center of pain, it's kind of the only thing that we can think about. When we can move a little bit farther away from the center, kind of on the edge of it, and take in that bigger picture, then we also notice, oh, actually, my shoulder feels totally comfortable right now. Or I hadn't noticed, but that just other kind of pain in my knee is gone. So I think mindfulness is really helpful for chronic pain because it gives us this bigger picture. But I also think that mindfulness practices are really good at regulating the nervous system. And what I mean by that is when we're in pain, when we're braced, there is a message being sent from the body to the brain that we're not safe. That's the perception. And so if we can interrupt that message, even or despite the pain that we're experiencing, if we can interrupt that message of we're not safe, then we can help the nervous system to relax. And a more relaxed nervous system equals a more relaxed body. So a body in tension will experience more discomfort than a body in relaxation. And pain causes tension, right? Because we brace against it.
Right.
That's not inevitability. Like we can learn to hold pain without bracing. I'm not suggesting that's easy at all, but we can, certainly to some extent, we can practice that. So I think when dealing with pain, what's really helpful is to recognize that there are all kinds of ways to improve our quality of life, and to not hold so fast to reducing this particular pain is the only way I can imagine my life being better. And again, that's why I like sort of the big picture of mindfulness and yoga therapy, because we look at life in a more holistic way versus dialing it down to the little fractions of life. And I think that can be really helpful when dealing with pain.
Wow, that really resonates with me too, because I work on trying to do that stuff and it's not easy, as you said, but it would be, I think, so great to be able to get there. Like, not that there's like an end point where you touch that buzzer and it's done, but it's certainly a goal I'm working on too.
Yeah. And you're right. It fluctuates. It really fluctuates. I think the other thing that I love about mindfulness for pain and disability is it's accessible. So maybe every so often you need some support. Certainly, we all need support learning new skills and processing what we're learning. But then once you have some of those tools, it's something you can do on your own. It's free. You have agency. You don't have to make an appointment. You're not at the mercy of anyone else taking you from point A to point B or a doctor being available. It's something you can do in bed, in your home, whenever you have the space and inclination to do it. So I think that's another huge benefit. And of course, easier said than done. It's really easy to make a list or to know sort of all the things that would be good for us and then to watch Netflix instead. I've certainly done that as well, but it is a really accessible kind of practice that anyone can work with at any time.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, you can find it in so many different ways. Like you can just find something free online. You might have an app that people use. Do you hear from your clients? Is there a most popular way that they do that or that you do that yourself?
So I have a huge library of meditations that my clients work with that are part of my yoga and mindfulness membership. But for myself, when I don't want to hear my own voice, these are practices that you can do on your own without any voice. But of course, I also know that sometimes it's just a little more accessible to follow someone else's voice. So the free app that I use is Insight Timer. And there are others. There's Headspace. There's a number of different apps now. Calm is another one. I'm just most familiar with Insight Timer, and I'm not that much of a techie. So once I figure something out, I just stick with it.
That's great. Can you tell me what kind of training did you do to be able to incorporate all of these different things that you build into this offer of support?
Well, I started in social work. I wasn't a social worker, but I was in public service. And that just led me to want to be a greater support to people in ways that I was able to at that stage. And then I added a master's in counseling, and that gave me more skills, but still not enough. Right away, I was aware that I wanted to be able to bring the body into the therapeutic process, and I did not receive that in my master's. So then I got certified to teach yoga and recognized that that still was not quite enough. So then I went through a yoga therapy certification, and that really helped me to look at how I could put all the pieces together. And then, kind of intermingled through all of this, I worked and trained with an organization that took people on nature-based experiences. And through that, there was a lot of depth psychology that was kind of gathered into the mix. And then since then, just so much reading and study on yoga and mindfulness and meditation. And so I feel like I just kind of walk around with a really, really big toolbox, and I just pull whatever feels appropriate in the moment.
Well, that's pretty cool that you've given yourself so many tools in this toolbox.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of old, so I've had lots of time. you know,
You're
I'm
not
not a
that old.
20-year-old. I've been around for a while, so it's a lot of years to gather tools.
That's kind of cool. And I like that you somehow knew you weren't quite there yet. And then you sort of tried adding things and then, not quite. And you sort of knew where you were going. But I don't know. Did you know from the beginning that you wanted to be a yoga therapist?
No, not at all. But I just kept learning the next thing and seeing a little hole, like a little place that I could feel like needed to be filled, but I wasn't quite sure how to fill it myself. And so I just kept kind of doing the next thing until I felt like I had enough skills to offer what I wanted to offer. I mean, there's a million more I'd like to have, but I feel like I have enough for the work that I'm doing.
That's great. Yeah, I love it. So I also wanted to go back to something that you mentioned earlier about helping people who are struggling with trauma or grief, because I think, especially in our community, there's a lot of grief and trauma that people are maybe not so aware of. Learning to live with a disability or chronic illness that maybe has changed your life a lot is incredibly stressful and can involve a lot of grief. So I don't know if you have any sort of suggestions about how to help people sort of figure out, how much grief are they carrying around and how can they access that? And I don't know if you have any ideas. Not an easy question.
Yeah, as all of your questions, quite layered. I mean, I think of it in terms of those layers. Like there's the way that we carry grief that's pretty close to the surface, and being willing to feel what we're feeling and maybe talk about it in a safe space, I think is really helpful in dealing with grief. And then there's kind of the layer of, and so when I say it's on the surface, we have options to feel or not feel. We all know that there are some times that we have an emotion and we kind of consciously or unconsciously go, nope. And I'm not saying that that's not a perfectly reasonable protective mechanism to use often. But if we're wanting to process some of those things we're holding, all those difficult emotions that we hold that we don't process and that we don't speak out loud, they don't disappear. They're still stuck in our bodies, causing tension, wreaking havoc of one sort or another. So I think, again, I have no interest in pressuring anyone to experience their difficult emotions if that's not where they want to go. But if they don't experience them to some extent, they will still be causing some harm inside. So the question is, how can we get into a safe enough kind of experience to do some of that processing? Again, some of it may just be verbal, just having a place where we're willing to feel something or to share something. And that can have a huge healing impact. And sometimes we need more than that. We need to do a little more excavation. Where am I holding that piece of grief? Where am I holding that memory of that trauma? And the body holds all of it. So oftentimes, if I'm working with someone and I'm doing a lot of awareness exercises, is where I start with people. What are you noticing right now when you come into your body, when you soften your gaze or close your eyes? Are there emotions, thoughts, images, sensations? We just go to whatever they're noticing. So if you're noticing a pain in your shoulder, I might say, could you hold your attention there for a bit longer? Now, what are you noticing? From that pain in your shoulder, you may now have an emotion or a memory or an image, spontaneous image might arise. So part of what I'm doing is helping people track what they notice when they settle in. They notice the range of those things, sensations, thoughts, emotions, images, and one leads to more information. So in a way, I think of it as I'm just helping people follow the threads and sitting with them through it.
I think that's actually an awesome answer. I mean, I really did give you quite a question, but you handled it beautifully, and that's really, really a great description. And I think something that could help a lot of people if they're able and wanting to do that. So that's great.
Yeah. The wanting is important. And I think that's a big piece of the work that I do is around agency. I don't have a prescription and I don't have a plan. And I want to support people in exploring what they want to explore. And I don't think there's any benefit to even to pressuring ourselves too much. There's this quality of compassion that I think we can bring to healing work. And there's another quality of sort of self-improvement that is not layered in compassion that I don't think is as effective or as helpful or as interesting or fun or any of those things. So I'm always looking at, okay, how can we bring a little compassion into this body of work?
So we have kind of an exciting opportunity. Rachel and I have spoken about how much potential there is in this type of work to help people wherever they are on their reimagining journey. And my concern that, many people live on very tight budgets and can't afford to do all the things they wish they could do. So cost can be prohibitive. So we came up with some ideas that might be able to get you closer to trying this out and seeing how it is.
Yes. So people on my newsletter receive lots of free support resources. I will oftentimes include a guided meditation around whatever theme I'm talking about in my newsletters. My website has lots of information, including lots of blogs that have many of the old guided meditations that I've offered in my newsletters. So, and then sometimes I offer classes, and those classes are definitely less expensive because they're scalable. I have more people joining me than in a one-on-one situation. So yes, there's lots of options, but you can always start at my website, and that sort of sends you in all different kinds of directions to explore.
Okay, great. And we'll include that in the show notes so people can easily get it. Can you tell me a little bit about reactions to this type of work? If someone comes and says, I want to try this out, they've never done it before. What kind of reactions do you typically see? Do you have any sense for, I know everyone is different, but how long does it take for you to start doing this before you can really sort of feel a difference?
So it depends on what kind of difference you're looking for. If you're talking about feeling a little more relaxed in your body, if you're talking about slowing down some of the thoughts when we're sort of spinning, if you're talking about getting out of that fight flight response and into a calmer, more relaxed state, that can happen in 2 minutes of effective breathing. So some of the practices that I offer are very body oriented. I'm working with practices with breath and with movement that help to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your relaxation response. And that can happen really quickly. I also work with people on rewiring their brains in ways that I spoke about earlier. I also work with people around processing their grief, their long-term anxiety, past traumas. Those things take longer. So if you think about going to therapy, it's going to take more than a couple of sessions. So it really depends on what your goal is. If you're really just looking for some skill building around how to manage pain and how to get your body into a more relaxed state, you can feel that really quickly.
So I'm very excited to say that Rachel has been kind enough to give us a demonstration, to offer us a 5-minute guided meditation so that those of us who might not have ever tried this before could get a little bit of a taste, a tiny, tiny taste of what this work is. And I thought the best way to do it is to actually bring it to life and do it right now. So we're going to do that in a minute. And the other exciting news I was going to share with you is that we're going to offer, specifically designed for the Reimagining Life podcast community, a free class that Rachel is going to lead. We'll put a link to the class registration in the show notes so that you can sign up. There will be a live class. You can ask questions and participate. You don't have to be on video. If you want to be on video, you absolutely can. And then it will be available for you to listen or watch anytime you want. So that is something very exciting, and I hope people will be interested in trying out. It is designed so that anybody can do it, no matter what your limitations are. And there are no judgments, no, this is the right way, the wrong way. And I really just hope that people will give it a try and see what it's like. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel for our 5-minute guided meditation.
Okay, so you might be in all kinds of shapes. You might not be in a situation where you can close your eyes. You don't have to. I'm going to give a number of options. But if you're in a space to practice with me for 5 minutes, just come into as comfortable of a shape as you can. You don't have to be, I'll just say that, as comfortable of a shape as you can. And it would be ideal if you're feeling like you can take a reasonably deep breath in this shape. So if I'm kind of slumped over in a forward fold, I probably won't be able to breathe that fully. So if you're able to kind of open up across the front body just a little bit, that would be ideal. And as you're settling in, just notice any sensation that's present, particularly between your body and wherever you're feeling support. Maybe you can feel something against your back, something under your seat, something on your arms, any place that you're resting into that you have some sensation available. Just notice that. And then notice your breath, the length of your inhale and your exhale. And notice the direction that your body moves when you breathe. So sometimes when we inhale, we kind of suck our bellies in. Sometimes we expand them. Notice what happens for you. Sometimes when we breathe, all the breath feels like it's up high in the chest. So to the extent that you can, as you inhale, see if you can feel the belly and maybe the chest rise at the very top. So think bigger on the inhale and smaller back to baseline on the exhale. Now see if you can lengthen that exhale. Make it at least as long as your inhale. Your exhale is the part of your breath that connects you to that parasympathetic system, your relaxation response. So the longer you exhale, the easier it will be to relax. And if you haven't done breath work before, sometimes it can feel stressful. You can actually feel at the beginning a little bit more anxious because you're not used to it. You're having doubts about whether you're doing it right. To whatever extent you can, let that go. Just recognize it's normal. It's something new. It can feel a little confusing. Just come back to at least an intention to inhale and expand the belly, and exhale a little longer than you think you can. And if your mind's all over the place, see if you can just over and over bring it back to the counting. Count the length of your inhale, just gives you something to focus on. And count the length of the exhale. And again, work towards an exhale that is at least as long as your inhale. So just 2 minutes of breathing like this, using the diaphragm, following with a long exhale, can help to relax your body and your mind. We're just going to add one more part to this meditation, which is to acknowledge a place in your body that is holding tension or discomfort or pain. There might be many places. You only need to acknowledge one and let your awareness settle on that space. And to whatever extent you can, try not to tell a story about the sensation. Sometimes we have a sensation that's uncomfortable and we start telling a whole story about it in our mind. You're just, to whatever extent you can, noticing just the sensation, which may be unpleasant. Now take a little journey through your body and see if you can find another place where the sensation is pleasant or neutral. And again, you don't need to tell a story about it. You're just letting yourself kind of sit with your awareness on a space in your body that is pleasant or neutral. And then take a step back from both of those places, take in the wholeness of your body, and just acknowledge how many different things are happening in this one body. Not just one thing or two things that feel uncomfortable, but lots of things going on in the whole body, some of which are neutral or pleasant. And notice if the combination of a nourishing breath and an awareness of your wholeness has had any effect. Maybe there's more calm, maybe a little less looping in your thoughts. Just notice any effect that this brief meditation has had, and anything you might want to return to. And that's it. Just a little example of some of the practices that might be helpful or supportive.
Thank you. I was following along myself. I feel like I am quieter feeling. So it's nice. I like that. Thank you for that. Now we've come to our rapid fire 5 for 5 questions. Please answer honestly and quickly, whatever comes to mind. So what's your favorite sound?
The sound of Om, like the depth, I love that deep, deep, deep sound.
That's fitting. What's your favorite word?
My gosh, I love words so much. How could anyone pick a favorite? Right now, extrapolate is coming to mind, and I don't use it
Oh,
very often, but that's what popped in.
okay. We'll go with that. Do you have a favorite guilty pleasure? It doesn't have to be guilty.
Yeah, binging, like, if I'm not good at monitoring myself when a new series comes in that I like.
Yep.
That's my guilty pleasure, binge watching a series.
Yep. It's so easy to do now. Okay. What is something you've learned that you wish other people would understand?
Co-regulation. So anytime we are in conversation, my nervous system is responding to your nervous system below the level of words. And I didn't understand that, especially with small children, that if I could keep myself really calm, then it would help them to be calm. And that calm words are different than a calm body. So just recognizing that when I'm in a room with people, how I feel inside has an effect on how they feel inside. I wish I knew that earlier, and I wish everyone knew that.
That's an important point. I agree. Okay, and the last one. What advice would you give to an 18-year-old version of you?
Just, I think, like day to day, just it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be fine. There's going to be plenty of like painful moments and discomfort, but really it's all just fine.
That is very reassuring to hear. Okay, so those are all the questions I had for you. Do you have anything else you wanted to say or add?
Just that I really love being a resource. And so when I say that I have, free things here and there on newsletters, I also mean that you can just email me if you have a question. I really enjoy offering people tools that they don't have that I just happen to have. And I want to share them. So if your community has questions, they don't have to sign up for anything. They can go to my website and send me an email, and I will answer to the best of my ability.
Well, that's very generous. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that from all of us.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that is all for our conversation with Rachel, and stay tuned for how to sign up for our special class.
Thank you for having me.
This episode highlighted the importance of calming the nervous system and mind and body to help people find wellness and comfort mentally, physically, and emotionally. Rachel uses yoga and meditation, mindfulness, and relaxation practices to help her clients focus on the big picture. Rachel's extensive training, such as her master's in therapy, certification in yoga therapy, and many others, allow her to have a very large toolbox from which to pull. For people who suffer from chronic pain and/or disability, she noted that there are often people who help deal with specific pieces of the puzzle, such as the physical pain and sensation, the emotional pain, but no one really helped with the whole picture and how other parts of us are impacted by ongoing pain. By using a holistic big picture approach, Rachel looks at all the pathways to wellness. Rachel talked about when dealing with chronic pain, our brains can get stuck in the pain cycle. And in addition to pain sensations, our brains can cause emotional stress related to that pain, which it compounds it. It becomes so important to learn how to retrain the brain and its response to our chronic pain. In order to give our audience a taste of what this kind of approach is like in real life, Rachel led us in a 5-minute mindfulness breathing exercise. We hope you gave this a try to see how it feels. We're also very excited to share this opportunity, especially for our Reimagining Life podcast community. Rachel and I have worked together to develop a free 30-minute mindful movement and meditation class tailored especially for our community, meaning everyone can participate no matter your challenges or situation. We hope you'll join this live class. Look for the link to register in the show notes. If you're unable to join the live class, don't worry. The recording will be made available the following day. Just make sure to sign up in order to get the link. Thanks for listening to Reimagining Life from Pain to Purpose. We're always interested to hear your feedback and questions. So leave a review and drop us a note at reimagininglifepodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. We hope you'll tune in for the next episode.